The Sports Conspiracy by Shahzwar Bugti. Listen. Nothing is so permeating in popular culture as sports. We are exposed to competition-based physical struggles for dominance, aka athletics, from the cradle to the grave. Is this phenomena a manifestation of normal evolutionary needs for hierarchy, alpha males, and social order, or a skillfully crafted campaign of control and diversion by the ruling elite, the true alpha humans? Evidence seems to suggest that the clandestine ruling elite have, once again, found a mechanism that pits our own human nature against ourselves, and provides the ruling class with a means of population division, diversion, and complete dominance of a large sector of global citizens, who in turn oppress the remaining citizens unconvinced by the frivolities of sports, through a demented form of postmodern tribalism. The jockeying of the international sports culture is a five-pronged program that begins as social skills start developing and ends shortly before death, as truth realization is finally reached. Youth sports. On the surface, youth sports such as t-ball, little league, soccer, basketball, cricket, etc. seem quite innocent, enriching activities for children to meet other children and gain some of the benefits of physical exercise. But a deeper look into the vectors by which these children interact give us a better look at the ruling elite's plans for us. Children are brought together under a theme of competition. They want to win and feel good. Losing is akin to failure and disappointment in front of jeering crowds. With stakes riding so high on young minds, competition becomes a means of survival for individual ego. The need to dominate begins, which we will later see is the undoing of the individual. Children are taken from the natural and rightful dominance of parents and placed in a new environment where a coach, who is usually a stranger, dictates every action, thought, and philosophy of a child. Through the introduction of this third-party dominance, children become used to having strangers in places of authority dictate actions, and thus will follow any orders handed down from self-appointed coaches unflinchingly and enthusiastically. Even worse than the ability for coaches to control, is a new behavior pattern created that makes children want to please authority figures, which, of course, is the end goal of all these programs. Also beginning here is the creation of artificial group identity, a subject which I shall discuss in the next section. High school sports behind the glitz of forced attendance / assemblage / celebration / mass meeting / get-together / powwow, or more simply recognized as pep rallies and school-sanctioned football games, lies perhaps the deadliest link in this method of population control through sports, the creation of artificial group identity and the beginning of blind nationalistic allegiance, not to be confused with patriotism, which is an allegiance to ideals. Students are arbitrarily sent to a school based on geographic boundaries set by local government, much like citizens of the world arbitrarily live in various countries according to places of birth. Yet within each school there is created an artificial need known as school spirit, which would make students believe that the school they went to by geographic accident is somehow superior, dominating, to neighboring schools. Identity is so fused into young, passionate minds that there is both organized violence, sports, and unorganized violence, vandalism / mascot mutilation / assault, committed in the name of school spirit, an arbitrary emotion evoked for the purpose of control and division. Just look around you, don't you see that happening? Also cemented in high school sports is a baseless belief in male dominance. Women are subjugated in two basic ways. As cheerleaders they are far from leaders. They stand on the sidelines of a field, as if they are to stay on the sidelines of life, in sexually suggestive clothing and cheer the male aggression atrocity happening before them, proving to all onlookers, and themselves, that they personally are not capable of taking control of a situation. They can just serve as tools to further sexual frustration of onlookers, creating a tension released as team loyalty, and cheer as males destroy each other. Both men and women will have their face painted with their country's flag if the game is on a national level and do all sorts of stupid things. The second way women are subjugated are through the ridicule of those who do attempt to become athletes. Women's teams do not receive nearly as much respect as males' teams. To many, women's sports don't seem like the real thing. Realizing this, those brave women who foolishly take the bait of the ruling elite and attempt to surpass the expectations of their peers are cruelly beaten down to a level that the secret Gobal government is comfortable with. High school sports create a set of false ideals and bogus goals. It says, this aggressive, arrogant, belligerent, large male is the archetypal male. See how he is rewarded. And rewarded he is with affection from the opposite sex, approval from peers, silly awards and money to further his sports career in college. It creates the previously mentioned twisted idea of womanhood as well, which is discussed above. More important than enforced sexual stereotypes is the general goal that states that physical greatness surpasses mental greatness. Mental greatness is something reserved for the coaches, or generals or bosses or whatever third-party authority figure is attempting to control. Members of the working and poverty classes are spoon-fed the lie, give up personal betterment. Give up mental pursuits. They will get you nowhere. Sports will make you rich. Sports will make you famous. Sports are the ideal. And sadly, many believe the great sports lie. College/university sports at the collegiate level has crossed the line of subliminal induction and has moved into the realm of obvious control. College/university, a supposedly intellectual pursuit, is more accurately characterized as an indoctrination center, stressing violent competition, sports, nationalism, school spirit, self-destruction, alcohol abuse, wild behavior and sexual promiscuity, and worship of the elite class, fraternities, sororities, athletes, traits which set individuals up for a lifetime of subservience and unhappiness. For many, college or university is a time when offspring are first permanently separated from parental control, and thus, are easy targets for semblances of authority designed to further brainwash future generations. From the second one enters any college/university campus, they are bombarded, nay, assaulted by violent imagery of the respective sports teams in such a blanketing, all-encompassing way that even Goebbels would be proud of. And to further prove that colleges/universities are no longer centers of academia, one has to only look at recent cutbacks in university budgets. Every day we hear of some scholarly department closing down for lack of funding, or the cessation of certain programs due to cuts. You will be hard-pressed to find a college basketball, cricket, football team dealt the harsh reality of a budget cut, even though collegiate athletics sap more intellectual money than any department would ever get. Do not be fooled by false statistics, college sports lose money. Amateur sports to continue along to the next stage of sports washing, we must only look to any small town substandard, second-rate, below par Bush League teams. With the exception of people playing as a hobby, amateur sports, while providing entertainment, escape, bonding for townspeople, is probably the most destructive regimen dished out to any athlete. Knowing that professional sports become harder to enter with each passing season, even harder now that there are scouting tentacles around the entire world, the athlete must come to terms that he/she has chosen a course in life that will bear no fruit, save a few hours of physical activity in the evenings. Their bodies are ravaged and prematurely aged, and take more and more abuse with each hopeless game. This in turn leads to self-destructive behavior, sometimes resulting in suicide. Professional sports, because it is the most far-reaching, most impacting point of the five-armed sports conspiracy, the most nefarious level of sports is the top-level professional sports. Feigning importance, national sports has its own place in the mainstream media, sports sections, and even has its own media propaganda wing, ESPN, 10 Sports, Star Sports, The Sporting News, Sports Illustrated, PTV Sports, Geo Sports, etc. With such far-reaching probes, it is a small wonder the global public have fallen victim to the big lie. The ruling elite has the common person so caught up in sports and all its nuances, commentary, speculation, statistics, betting, etc., that the common person sees no reason to scrutinize and evaluate the corrupt reality that governs day-to-day life. If people spent as much time going over the budget for the country as they did third down conversion statistics for home teams in the second quarter during an odd-numbered year on natural grass in the rain 2 months after a near political assassination, this world would be filled with responsible, socially conscious individuals instead of impotently yelling, racist, overweight, armchair quarterbacks who still perceive ragtag Alaska, 47-wielding bearded ghosts, kept alive in people's minds through fake imagery and constant repetition by the media, as a viable threat, who could one day perhaps take over the country's nuclear arsenal. It appears cheering for trained guerrillas in colorful uniforms has more appeal than effectively taking steps to improving one's own life. Sports further serves to divide citizens by geographic region, creating false terms for conflict and even causing actual physical rioting. Our own hopes and fears are extrapolated and projected onto overpaid goons who represent our town, but the chance that any individual player was born, or ever lived in a town he/she represents is almost zero. Loyalty to that town is also almost zero when a sweet deal comes around. We are being cheated on all fronts, and while you're posting pictures on Facebook and putting up emotional and enthusiastic statuses about Ronaldo and Messi and Germany, which really are not going to help you in life, the members of the sports elite just get richer and richer. Even merchandising itself serves as indoctrination. One cannot walk down any street in most parts of the world without seeing sports imagery everywhere, proving how entrenched the propaganda is. The imagery of professional sports is so strong that violent street gangs adopt a certain team and murder members of other teams. I've seen this happen, especially in America and also in England, where I spent a considerable amount of my childhood. This is surely seen as a victory for the sports conspiracy, which has created an environment where the populace murders each other to obtain elite-produced goods. Most damaging, however, is sports figures' effect on the youth today. Children are shown that physical prowess and violent conflict, not mental fortitude and personal moral strength, are ideals to be emulated. What happens when these idols are revealed to our children as the lecherous drug addicts they obviously are? Is this the message we want to send our children? That steroids, amphetamines, and uncontrollable fornication are acceptable, if not admirable traits to be emulated and integrated by the next generation? Your humble author thinks not. Conclusion. What the entire sports conspiracy boils down to is diversion. What bread and circuses were to the Romans, the Cricket World Cup is to the people of Pakistan and India, or the World Series is to Americans. How many assassinations are scheduled on the same day as the Super Bowl? And how many major political decisions are made on the same day as the World Cup, while the sheeple are being entertained and distracted? Even if the media wasn't the puppet of the ruling elite, do you think they would go out of their way to report the real news? And, you thought Hunger Games was just fiction, eh? What do you think all that color, glitter and glamour and all that celebrity singing and dancing business is all about? Emotions run high at these events. Not just in those attending personally, but those freaking out in front of their televisions. With high emotions and dilated spirits comes the perfect condition for indoctrination. And they use it. Bathed in patriotic displays and tributes and peppered with multi-million-dollar advertising gimmicks and promotions, these stinkers slip in every possible corporo, illuminist sales point and cause their toll to push. And with a whole lot of sex appeal. I'm not going to belabor the idiocy but wanted to say something, mainly the BS indoctrination they saturate the naive viewers with. Whether cricket, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, the Olympics, it's the perfect stage to feature their occult program of personal sacrifice to the fascist global state of control. Don't you get it? The Olympics are the Hunger Games. Competitive sports, many of which were invented by illuminated ones, with most of today's mega franchises owned by high-ranking mega-wealthy bloodline families, are built on their themes of exploitation and their rule of thumb to divide and conquer, keeping humanity at variance with itself, out of which comes a much easier milieu for direction, domination and control. Not only will they be distracted by bread and circus, but it gives them an outlet for their emotions. Release valves are important to them, which is why some issues are allowed to come to light periodically in the political and news arenas. This aspect is almost as important as their ongoing programs for preemptively lobotomizing humanity via drugs, adulterated air, food and water, reverse education, mindless media and the like. Not just that, but sports exacerbate and normalize anger, pride, patriotism, territorial aggression and the like. In turn, that justifies the police state to control the crazed masses, a deliberately contrived vicious cycle. Welcome to the police state mentality. Ever wonder about uniforms, their effect on the psyche and what they imply? School uniforms, team uniforms, business uniforms, medical uniforms and on and on. Why do bells and alarms and sirens sound and the herd is taught these required mass responses? Sure, some make sense but most are just conditioning. This is everywhere, and something to be researched thoroughly. We have to get this matrix programming out of our systems and learn to identify when we're being programmed. It's increasingly difficult with the advent of advanced electromagnetic and nanotechnology, but nothing can trump consciousness. We have power they know not of, and that is why are justifiably afraid of us. Rub their noses in it. We have nothing to fear. Our weapons are spiritual. They're masters of emotional displacement. Siphoning off our energies for ridiculous and meaningless detours, diversions and distractions. I'm sure you'll think of more examples of how this technique is played out on the human psyche, but these blatant displays are more than meets the eye when you look at the toll on human awareness and how limiting and diabolically clever these social engineering techniques can be. World Cup, Herd Club, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. It's all a charade designed to program, pacify and polarize. Imagine when people spend hours and hours and hours discussing their favorite sports teams and players, people whom they know nothing about on a personal level, whom they've never met or will never meet. Better yet, imagine those people who actually spend money to travel halfway across the world to attend these things and take pictures there. How can they be expected to understand realities of life? Does it really come as a surprise when such people are unable to comprehend the simplest of truths in life, or when they mock those who can see through the deceptions laid out by the ruling elite? Sports, for me, is a crucial example of the indoctrination system. That is why I'm stressing on it so much. I mean, just look around you and you'll know why I'm repeating some of the things I've already mentioned over and over again. I must get my point across. Sports is crucial for the elitist global agenda because it offers people something to pay attention to that's of no importance. That keeps them from worrying about things that matter to their lives that they might have some idea of doing something about. And in fact, it's striking to see the intelligence that's used by ordinary people in discussions of sports. I mean, you listen to radio stations where people call in, they have the most exotic information and understanding about all kind of arcane issues. And the press undoubtedly does a lot with this. Go ahead, ask yourself, why do you care if your high school team wins the next ball game? I mean, most of you don't know anybody on the team anyway. I mean, they have nothing to do with you. I mean, why are you cheering for your team? It doesn't it doesn't make sense. But the point is, it does make sense. It's a way of building up irrational attitudes of submission to authority, and group cohesion behind leadership elements. In fact, it's training in irrational jingoism. That's also a feature of competitive sports. I think if you look closely at these things, I think, typically, they do have functions, and that's why energy is devoted to supporting them and creating a basis for them, and advertisers are willing to pay for them, and so on. I'll repeat this for the third time, my friends: bread and circus. Age-old ploy. Get the people occupied with meaningless games and politics. Just as the modern professional and college sports worlds were designed decades ago and the phony election meme was delivered. Leave it up to the elite, they know their Masonic black-white opposing stuff. More incredible realities that escape a thinking head in the expenses, the energy being invested in stupid, ultimately meaningless games and electoral processes is inestimable. The farce of how money, and therefore energy, is directed is off the charts. Many multi-billion-dollar empires are built upon these gaming sports industries, yet the world cannot see the obvious incredulity of wasting our energy and assets on fanciful emotional whims instead of answering the outcry of humanity that's screaming in their ears for help and solace. They're trying to prevent, pervert and divert that outcry. Another example is the mega-metastasizing media-driven computer game industry. We're in trouble, folks. Our children and grandchildren are being seriously programmed and screwed up. As is the pointless, futile direction of society. And now they have real challenges about awakening. They think this is all a form of reality. Please, help them wake up. Right now, I'm using sports as an example of a societal distraction, though I must acknowledge it is just one of many forms of propaganda presented as entertainment. And that's why, despite cutting back on sports, you shouldn't consider yourself superior to a sports fanatic. There are plenty of other distractions: mindless television shows, sitcoms, pop songs, magazines, novels, books, sayings of past/present elite pushed, sponsored and promoted sycophants who plant the same elitist ideas in the public mind in subtle ways, cliched popular opinion-driven memes, that you still engage with. I do not want to leave you with a feeling of hopelessness, as this is what the power elite wants. You should feel empowered by this new knowledge. We can break the cycle. We can stop the sports conspiracy dead in its tracks. We just have to care enough to speak and live the truth. There you have it. Once again, written by Shahzwar Bugti. K.I.K, knowledge is king. Get into the know. Peace.